Imagine a biker who thought it would be funny to kick a blind man's dog, but he had no idea it was an AK-9 service dog. What happened next shocked everyone. It's an incredible story you won't want to miss, so stay tuned, subscribe and tell us in the comments what you would do if you witnessed this. Now let's get started. In Glendale, the morning started peacefully. The sky was clear and bright blue, and the sidewalk in front of a busy cafe was filled with customers enjoying their morning coffee. Among them sat at an outdoor table Samuel Turner, a blind man, stood next to him. Thor, his faithful German shepherd, alert and attentive. This wasn't just a guy, a dog. His past as a seasonal dog of the K9 unit, now retired, was dedicated to protecting Samuel, providing not only guidance but also deep emotional support that Samuel greatly appreciated. Samuel was calmly sipping his coffee when the morning silence was broken by the sudden roar of 3 motorcycles pulling up to the cafe. The hum of the engines attracted everyone's attention. 3 men in leather jackets with bright stripes had dismounted. Their relaxed demeanor contrasted with the imperious air of the group's leader, who was gesturing vigorously as he spoke to NIS comrades as if staking his claim to the space around them. Thor, always on guard, instantly perked up his ears as he sensed the unusual disruption to the usual order. The trio moved slowly between the tables of the cafe, looking around at the patrons. Derek's gaze fell on Thor and Samuel. He paused for a moment, studying the dog. He noticed he muttered, getting Thor's attention, who tensed and leaned forward slightly, testing the dog's reaction. Thor didn't move from his spot, but his posture clearly signaled fatigue, as if testing the dog. Derek suddenly waved his arms and grinned. Was he really that smart? His friends responded with strained laughter. The tension in the air thickened. Thor remained motionless but kept his eyes on Derek. Samuel could not see the latter pointed at him, but sensing the change asked if everything was all right. His voice was level, but there was perhaps a hint of worry in it. He sensed Thor's changed demeanor. Their quiet table was a stark contrast to the excitement around them. Derek, seeing his attempts to provoke a reaction had failed, took a step back but then laughed loudly again. Samuel, unaware of the underlying tension, reached out and patted Thor gently. "You okay, buddy?" he asked. In response, Thor moved closer to his owner, but did not take his eyes off Derek, who seemed to understand that the dog was not afraid of him. The atmosphere in the cafe changed noticeably when Samuel finished the last sips of coffee. Derek and his friends' laughter became louder, acquiring a more aggressive tone. Thor sat motionless next to his owner. His body was tense, his gaze was fixed on one point, ready for any developments. He was not just a pet, he was a protector, trained to protect at all costs. Derek, attracting attention, slowly approached Samuel's table, ignoring the curious glances of onlookers. "You have a good dog," he said in a playful tone, although there was a mockery in his voice. Samuel smiled slightly, trying to relieve the tension. "Thank you. Thor is my best friend." Derek tilted his head, feigning interest. "Named after the Norse god of thunder. Let's see how strong he is." Without waiting for an answer, he abruptly extended his hand and touched Thor's muzzle. The gesture might have seemed harmless to the stranger, but to Thor, who was trained to instantly recognize threats, it was a provocation. The German shepherd did not attack, but retreated, letting out a low warning growl. The atmosphere became heavy. Silence fell like a thick blanket. "Light friend," said Derek. He raised his hands in mock surrender, but his eyes sparkled with defiance. Samuel, still not understanding what was happening, gently placed his hand on Thor's neck, trying to calm him down. "Sorry if he scared you," he said sincerely. Derek smirked, but his pride was clearly hurt by the dog's reaction. He retreated, but then heard his friends taunting Derek. "Letting the dog put you in your place." The smile fell from his face. In the crowd he noticed a few people filming the scene on their phones. It made him hesitate. "Relax guys, it's just a dog," he said dismissively, but Thor knew the difference between a game and a potential threat. Samuel couldn't see what was happening. He felt the change in the air. "What was happening?" he muttered. His gaze was locked on Derek. He was on edge, ready for anything. Derek stepped back, not to retreat but to rethink. His friend's taunts only fueled his wounded pride. The air was electric with tension. Samuel still didn't realize how tense the situation had become. He tried to diffuse it. He didn't like it when people got too pushy. Derek waved him off, ignoring the attempt at reconciliation. He looked back at his friends as if seeking approval for his next move. With a smirk he took a step towards Thor, holding out his hand. Thor still sat there, growling again, this time almost silently, but enough to signal the tension in the crowd rose sharply. The onlookers looked worried, but Derek didn't back down, as if he was deliberately testing the limits of the dog. "Let's see what you can do, big guy," he said with a nervous chuckle. "You really are as tough as you look." With that he pushed Samuel's chair back slightly. That was enough. Thor immediately rose to his feet, his body tensed, coiled like a spring. A murmur went through the crowd, several people took out their phones again, filming the scene. Samuel felt Thor's posture change and frowned in worry. He ran his hand down the dog's neck, trying to calm it down, but deep down he felt something bad was brewing. "What's going on here?" he asked with concern, his face reflecting his worry. Derek laughed, but his voice was tense. Despite the risk, he clearly didn't want to back down, especially in front of his friends and the crowd. "Relax, it's nothing," he said, trying to downplay the situation and reassure Samuel, "just having a little fun at the moment." A woman who was watching nearby stood up abruptly. "Stop this right now," she demanded loudly and firmly. "Leave the dog alone." Her harsh tone made Derek 7 hesitate. For the first time a shadow of embarrassment crossed his face when he noticed the disapproving glances of the crowd. Thor remained motionless, his gaze was fixed on Derek, his body was tense and ready for anything. The air was thick like a rope that was about to snap. Derek said nothing, but the crowd grew restless. People's eyes darted between him, Thor, and the confused Samuel. Derek took a step back, not to give in but to evaluate his next move. "Relax, we're just kidding," he muttered, trying to brush the situation off and regain his confidence, but despite his feigned indifference his demeanor betrayed him. Thor remained motionless, his eyes never left Derek, watching his every move. Samuel tightened his grip on the leash. He whispered softly. He couldn't see Derek's tense posture, but he could feel the growing threat. Thor wasn't just a pet, he was a trained protector, and his heightened alertness let Samuel know that danger was near. Trusting his dog completely, Samuel felt a wave of anxiety. The crowd fell silent, the tension in the air was almost palpable. Derek stepped back but then impulsively kicked the nearest chair, causing it to roll towards Thor. The metallic clang as the chair hit the pavement echoed down the street, causing gasps from the onlookers. Thor reacted instantly. He dodged it, allowing the chair to slide past him. Now he was not just a watchful dog, he was a warrior ready to protect his master at all costs. The woman's voice cut through the air again. Others in the crowd joined in, demanding that Derek stop, but he just stood there with his fists clenched, his pride bruised. It's okay, he grumbled, trying to hide his growing irritation, but his clenched fists and sullen posture told a different story. Samuel was now fully aware of the seriousness of the situation. He stood up, holding Thor's leash tightly. The escalating confrontation had finally captured his full attention, and he was ready to defend his trusted comrade. "Can someone tell me what's going on?" he asked loudly, clearly alarmed. Before anyone could answer, the crowd held their breath, feeling the tension growing. Thor, sensing danger, ducked slightly, ready to protect his master if necessary. Derek moved closer, his presence looming, especially for someone who couldn't see the threat coming. "What was wrong?" Hiding behind his dog, he chuckled, though his laughter betrayed his concern. Samuel remained calm, though there was still a hint of tension in his voice. "Thor isn't hiding me from anyone. He's here to protect me, and it seems he senses something I can't see." Thor didn't move, but his low, deep growl grew louder with each passing second, clearly signaling his readiness to act. The crowd began to murmur louder, expressing their concern. Finally an older man at the next table stood up, enough to leave before things got any worse, but Derek, spurred on by his friends and his own pride, simply smirked, ignoring the warning. He looked at the old man as if he were just another obstacle, but his expression was becoming increasingly uneasy. Then the tense silence was broken by Thor's loud, deep bark, a short, powerful sound that made Dirk instinctively retreat. Gasps ripples through the crowd. Some people reached for their phones while others retreated. The atmosphere changed noticeably. Samuel, alarmed by Thor's behavior, realized that the situation was approaching a dangerous tipping point. "Thor, it's okay." He tried to calm the dog down, but Thor kept his eyes on Derek, remaining in a state of high alert. Derek, driven by the need to save face, suddenly lunged forward quickly enough to avoid Thor's immediate attention. The shepherd instantly rushed forward, placing himself between his master and the aggressor. His reaction was quick and precise. He did not attack, but his stance slightly lowered, his teeth bared and his glaring eyes made it clear that it was time to retreat. The silence penetrated out into the street. Derek stood stunned. Thor's piercing gaze seemed to pin him to the spot. Realizing the gravity of the moment, Samuel looked up and said firmly, "You better leave." The crowd began to murmur. Derek looked around, realizing he had lost not only the confrontation but his composure as well. Without a word he turned and walked away, trying to hide his embarrassment. His friends followed him silently, and soon they had disappeared around the corner. The morning had started with its usual calm, but now the air was filled with whispers and tension. Samuel could feel the change around him even if he couldn't see it. The distant hum of a motorcycle had died down to the muffled conversations of onlookers. Thor remained close, his body still tense, his front paws trembled slightly. Sensing Thor's anxiety, Samuel knelt down and ran his hand through the German Shepherd's fur, it's okay now buddy, he whispered trying to reassure him.